we'll start with your
Okay.
Students First Act.
Okay.
It's been something you've been trying to pass, a version of it at least, for 3 years. Why is this such an important priority to you?
Well, I think it's really important that we're setting every child up for an opportunity to be successful. And I've said all along, it is critical that we have a strong public education system. It's the foundation of education, it's the foundation of our state and our economy and of society. But it's equally as important, I think, that parents have the opportunity to make sure their child is in the best environment that sets them up to be the best that they can be and thrive. And parents are the best ones to make that decision. And it shouldn't be for only for those that have the resources to do that. I believe that every parent should have that option. I also believe it's not a zero-sum game. I think it will enhance education overall.
But there are people that continue to say, you know, in this plan at least, there's $7,598. There are people that say that's money that would have gone to a public school, but this program is incentivizing kids to leave the public school system and for that money to leave, and gives public schools money, but $1,200 instead of the $7,600 that they would have received. What do you tell those people?
There's a lot of misinformation in that, and that's, you know, I kind of talked about the hysteria in the condition of the state. So people fear the unknown, and they tend to throw out a lot of information that's not factual, and a lot of that is included in some of the things that we're hearing. First of all, it's not going to impact the public school system. We're putting new money into the program. I'm really proud of the additional funds. It's over $200 million that we're putting into education. That's exciting. That's really helping all students be the best that they can be. You know, right now, it's about 56% of our state budget goes to education. We have put over $1 billion of new money into K-12 education since fiscal year 2012. We've put more money in every year. So, you know, I'm not sure, I've said this many times, I don't know what is the magic number. All they ever hear is more money, more money, more money. So right now it's 56% of our state budget. Is it 65%? Is it 75%? And then when you take a look at what other states are doing, so I gave Florida as an example in the condition of the state, they actually spend $2,000 less per student than we do, and they're scoring way better than we are on in math and reading. So it's not just about the money. We need to take a look at other things. I believe this will, you know, help all of us be better, and ultimately the goal is to make sure that we're getting the best possible outcomes for the kids, and that's where we need to be focused.
There are people that say, without this program, there likely would have been public school students that would stay in their public school, and that $7,598 would go to that public school, and that public school won't be getting that if this program.
Well, they're not teaching the child either. So they're not using, you know, they're not using the resources. The student's not going to be there. It just comes down to the fact that I don't think the school should be deciding the best environment. I think the parents should, whether it's bullying, whether it's, you know, religious things that matter to them. I think the parent should be deciding. And here's the other, you know, this is the other piece, kind of the scare tactic that's out there. People like to say that they think that it's going to destroy the public school system, the majority of the students are going to leave, and there's no data there to support that. Florida has been doing some type of school choice since the early 2000s, and right now only 3% of the entire student population in Florida, the parents have made the decision to not go to a public school but to go to a private school. Arizona is another great example that's been doing it for years and really pretty aggressive over the last 8 years. And right now only 5% of their population, student population, has, the parents have made the decision to move from public to private. So, you know, the majority of parents are happy with with the education that they're receiving from their public school. But for those that just believe this isn't right for my child, you know, maybe they want to do something special in academics. It's kind of like the charter school. It's very similar to that. We have charter schools that are STEM focused. We have private schools that maybe are a little bit more focused on religious. We have religion. We have private schools that are maybe a little bit more focused on a STEM. That's kind of that same philosophy. And if you have a child that you believe can be better or, you know, excel in a different environment, then as a parent, you should be able to have that choice. And it shouldn't just be for those that have the resources to do it. That's just not right.
There are people that say, you know, that I'm sure come to you and say, my child's need is not being met in the public
Yep.
school system, and that's kind of what you laid out right there. Why create a program to help that student get that need met elsewhere instead of spending money to solve that need in the public school
But it's
system?
an option. It's all about options. It's competition. It's a good thing. It's just, you know, there's options already that exist. You know, it's similar to what we do with childcare. You know, private money goes into, our taxpayer dollars goes into preschool choices and into higher education. This is a similar model. We do it for preschool, we do it with the Iowa tuition grant for higher education, but for some reason we've decided that K through 12, they shouldn't have that option. And so there's precedence for it. It already exists. Those options already exist. It's just not everybody has the opportunity to take advantage of that, especially if they don't have the resources to do it. And I think that's fundamentally wrong.
Because this version that you've proposed this year is a lot more expansive than the last 2 years. You've proposed some larger changes in this bill. One of those being there's no income requirements once this plan is fully phased in.
Right.
Why make that change?
Because I think we made that decision a long time ago. Years ago, we decided that we were going to fund public education regardless of income means. So I think it's basically the status quo. I believe that that decision was made a long time ago. And the other part of that is if we take a look, you know, oftentimes we talk about the cliff when it comes to daycare. Sometimes that can be really restrictive on parents advancing or trying to take a promotion, because then it, you know, kicks them up a little bit with their income and throws them out of their ability to get help with childcare. And I don't want to create that similar type of system. I believe that was decided a long time ago. I don't want to mimic that, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Another big change, there's no cap on the number of education savings accounts that the state will fund. Some people have said, you know, how does that fit into the Republican plan of conservative budgeting if there's no limit on the number going forward that the state
We've ran all kinds of scenarios. We've tested this. We've done it with a recession, without a recession. We're able to do it. We're able to put the new money into the program. We still have significant balances left, not only in the as a surplus, but also in the taxpayer trust fund. I've made it very clear that another one of my priorities is the fact that I want to continue to cut taxes so that we can continue to be competitive as a state, and we can allow hardworking Iowans to keep more of their money. And so we're able to not only provide educational choice for parents, honor our priorities, and we'll be able to continue to reduce the tax burden on Iowans moving forward.
Another thing I've heard from some homeschooling families is they're wondering why homeschoolers weren't included in this plan.
Yeah, well, you know, you got to cut it off someplace. And so one of the reasons, you know, we set this up, we did a 3-year phase-in, to your point exactly, so we could kind of monitor what some of those numbers look like, and we could be fiscally responsible as we move through it with the projections that we put in place. We want to set up a platform that we can use to transfer the money, make sure that it's accountable, and that we are able to do it as seamlessly as possible. And so we need to get that set up with the infrastructure that we have in place with the existing bill, and then that's something that future legislators can take a look at moving forward. But right now, this is I'm really proud of the bill. You'll see a lot of other states emulate what we've done in Iowa. If we're able to get this across the finish line, it'll set the bar. I've already heard several of my colleagues that are looking at doing similar things. So this isn't, you know, you're going to see more and more states across the country really move in this direction, because, you know, they are just looking at it differently. We're not looking at a system, we're looking at children and kids and funding them and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that they have an opportunity to succeed and a great education. And so I think, you know, the bill that we've put together not only supports ESAs, but it also addresses comprehensive education reform, and that was a goal of mine as well.
one thing is it says the Department of Education can't modify standards for how private schools accept who they choose, who to accept and who not to accept. What would you tell a family who maybe wants to use an education savings account, but they can't because a private school won't accept them?
Well, I just don't think there's a lot of that happening out there. I think, they've set up a system. Sometimes it's teacher restraint, same thing some of the other school districts are dealing with. But a parent has decided they're not receiving, their child is not receiving the specific needs that they need in the existing public school system. And so they're going to go and start meeting with private schools or other options that they may have, and they'll sit down with the superintendent of the private school, and they'll have those conversations. But, I think they'd like us to believe that they're rejecting students. That's just not the case. They want to sit down with the family, and they want to make sure that they can meet their needs, that they have the resources to provide the quality education that that parent is looking for. So they don't want to bring that parent in and then not be able to have the resources to provide the services that they need. So, that's a conversation that takes place when a parent sits down with that private institution, and then they'll make a decision if that's where they believe that their child should go or not.
Now I want to talk just a little bit about if this plan would pass, how it would be administered.
So we've already issued an RFI. There's several companies, couple companies, 2 or 3 out there that do that right now. So we'll have a third-party platform that we'll put in place that will really handle, the transferring of the funds. They'll make sure that it's that they're held accountable, and they'll do audit processes will be included in the RFP when we finally get to that point. So we're out for information right now to see what's available, and then we'll fine-tune the request and the expectations that we have for the company going forward, and that'll be included in the RFP.
Talking about some of the other states that implement this plan, some of them have in their own bills requirements for what would trigger an audit or
we'll go through that
checks
we'll go through that same process.
So there will be requirements for accountability and transparency.
Well, accountability as far as the funds transferring, if that's
Okay.
what you're talking
Sure.
about, that'll be built into the RFP, into the requirements that we put forward before we sign off on that company providing those services.
Will that be something that lawmakers see before they vote yes or no on a bill?
No.
Okay, so that would come
They know
after.
that an RFP is out, RFI, is out right now, and that'll be included in the conversation that we have with them. But we've had, my team has already been working with the different companies in different states that are providing that, so we have a good sense of what's out there, what's available, and then we just need to fine tune it to what we need for the needs of Iowa's bill. Of
Do you
the process.
know what it would cost to contract out a third-party vendor?
I don't know yet what that is, but we need, that's a component that we need, and so that's some of the stuff that we'll be able to give you that information once we go through the RFP process.
Talking about some other pieces of your education reform package, I just want to read this so I don't get it wrong. The governor's office has said that pieces of that education package would include defining parents' rights in law, proposing to require transparency and set boundaries to protect Iowa's children from woke indoctrination. Could you first just explain what you mean by woke indoctrination?
Well, I think we've passed a couple bills to just make sure that we're not teaching a critical race theory, that we're not teaching students to hate this country and to judge people on the color of their skin, but to judge them on their character. I haven't dropped my parental rights bill yet. We're still working on it. We should be dropping that within the next couple of weeks. We've really been focused on the educational savings piece of our educational reform.
Would private schools that receive education savings account funds be included in different requirements or boundaries that are set forth by transparency bills?
They're held to, most of this would deal with the public schools right now. So, it would just be public schools.
Is there any other mechanism to, if the
Again,
state is
again-
not funding systems, but funding kids, shouldn't every education system then be held to the same standard?
Well, they are held to standards. They're an accredited private school, so they're accredited by the Department of Education ultimately, so they have various standards that they have to meet. But again, it's the parent that's going to be making that decision. So if they feel that this school doesn't meet their expectations, or what they're looking for, then they're not going to transfer their child there. So I'm going to trust parents to do the research, to to make the decision of what environment is best for their children. I don't think we should be doing that. I don't think schools should be doing that. I think parents should be the ones that are making that decision. So ultimately, all of schools, whether it's a private or public, should be held accountable to the parent, and certainly that's the case with the private schools too.